Most people think of the desert as a barren wasteland where very little can live or grow. Actually, that couldn't be farther from the truth. The desert is a delicately balanced ecosystem supporting over 200 species of wildlife. Several of the animal species found here are legally protected, such as the bighorn sheep, the golden eagle, and the Mojave ground squirrel. Also, there are more than 400 species of plants, ranging from pinyon pine to pickleweed. 23 of these species are considered rare or endangered, such as the Mojave fishhook cactus and phelisma or sand plant. Critically important springs and seeps support life in this arid environment. Many animal species and some plant species are totally dependent on these water sources.
However, the job is being complicated by interlopers. Range inventories estimate that in the California deserts alone, there are at least 20,000 feral burros. These burros are threatening and even destroying natural resources, altering the fragile balance of the desert ecosystem. Feral burros, that is, wild burros, whose ancestors were once domesticated, are not native to these deserts. In fact, they're not even native to the United States. Burros were introduced to North America by the Spaniards some 400 years ago. These burros adapted well to the desert, surviving on sparse vegetation and little water. When food and water are plentiful, they thrive. Burros have no known natural predators in the United States. They have a lifespan of about 25 years. With indiscriminate breeding, the burro population doubles at least every 5 years.
By 1982, there were between 3,500 and 5,700 burros on the center's ranges. The impact of this exploding burro population is, quite simply, ruining the desert. Burros compete intensely with native animals for food, water, and space. And the burros usually win, forcing native species away from their natural habitats. This competition is greatest around water sources.
Natural springs and seeps, with fragile riparian vegetation, form oases for desert wildlife. These oases provide water and food for all wildlife, while small species also use these areas for shade, protective cover, and breeding and nesting sites. A good example at the center is Indian Spring.
Burros haven't done much damage here, yet. However, overpopulation in the northern parts of the center is forcing burros even into this area. At the current rate of burro activity, it will take just a few years for Indian Spring to be as severely damaged as Hidden Spring, only 15 miles away. Here at Hidden Spring, heavy burro use has drastically changed the delicate balance that existed between water, plants, and animals. Burros have eaten or destroyed most of the vegetation, and they have significantly reduced the water output of the spring. As a result, They have forced many indigenous animals away from the area. What's left of this saltbush, a prime forage plant for many native animals, has been trampled and browsed so severely that it won't recover.
Continual feeding on one plant species in an area often results in permanent changes to the composition of the plant community. Plant diversity is reduced, desirable native plants disappear, and less palatable plants such as tansy mustard, cheatgrass, and tumbleweeds take over. More importantly, however, burros influence the quantity and quality of water sources. Most springs on the center are very small, producing as little as 1 gallon of water an hour. Some springs produce less than 1 gallon a day. Enough, however, to support a local native wildlife community that has adapted to a limited water supply. Each burro, on the other hand, can consume at least 3 to 5 gallons of water daily. Their trampling can reduce or even stop the water flow. They often contaminate the water with feces and urine.
We estimate that burro overuse of Hidden Spring has reduced the water output by 50 to 75%. And they have severely contaminated what little water remains. We believe that many animals leave the area because they refuse to drink contaminated water. Rodents and smaller species are very vulnerable because they can't roam far from the water sources. Reductions in populations of small animals affect the food supply of the predators, threatening their survival and disrupting the entire animal community. Here at Hidden Spring, we have seen a significant reduction in the number and diversity of rodents and reptiles.
Burro damage is not confined to Hidden Spring. Almost every spring and seep on Center has shown some degree of burro damage. The stability of this food chain is being threatened. Burros, by overgrazing what forage there is, and by creating extensive trail networks as they travel between water sources, are killing plants and compacting the soil. As a result, the soil's ability to sustain vegetation is severely curtailed. Rainfall does not readily penetrate the compacted soil, and vegetation cannot exist without water. Erosion increases and the aridity of the desert is intensified. Recovery of damaged areas may take decades to hundreds of years, if they recover at all.
The impact of trailings at the center has been graphically demonstrated. In 1976, 1 acre was fenced from burros as a control site to monitor the increase of burro activity outside the fence. In '76, there were about 800 burros in this general area. Computer enhancement of an aerial photograph of the site reveals the increase of burro trails outside the fenced area during the last 6 years. About 90% of the soil outside of the fence became unproductive. Inside the fence, the persistence of trails at least 6 years old shows the burro's long-term impact on the soil surface.
These non-renewable cultural resources are also vulnerable to burro damage.
Archaeological sites, for example, are usually near water sources, areas where burro damage is greatest. Burros have broken, damaged, and scattered artifacts, destroying the integrity of these sites. Here at Hidden Spring, an area that is being considered for nomination to the National Register, burros have destroyed the upper 50 centimeters of an archaeological site.
This fragile environment cannot tolerate the intrusion of the feral burro. Here at China Lake, we have found that burros damage water resources, vegetation, and soils. They compete with native animals for food, water, and shelter, forcing many species away from their natural habitats and ultimately threatening their very existence. Burros destroy irreplaceable cultural treasures. And just as the Navy has the responsibility to carry out its mission and to protect its personnel, the Navy also has the responsibility to manage and protect this desert environment for the future.